Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place that digs into complex research and pulls out the key insights, the things you can use to get ahead, well, pretty much immediately. Today, we're looking at something of a contradiction in the corporate world. Everything pushes velocity, right? Move fast, always be moving, haste is king. That's the narrative. But the material we're diving into today, it argues the complete opposite. That real, lasting leadership success actually comes from, well, from stillness, disciplined, intentional stillness. Yeah, our source for this is some really interesting work by the Swiss economist and author Dr. Pooyan Ghamari. Specifically, we're drawing from his book, The Art of Still Decision, How Mastering Mental Timing Builds Clarity, Power, and Results.
And our mission today really is to get past just saying, take a break. We want to unpack the mechanics of what Dr. Ghamari calls mental timing. It's about finding that toolkit, how to consciously sync up your awareness, your logic, and the action you need to take right at that critical moment where they all meet.
Okay, let's unpack this then. When we say still decision-making, we're not just talking about putting things off, right? What's the difference between delaying because you're avoiding something and delaying with actual purpose?
Oh, that distinction is absolutely crucial. Still, decision-making isn't passive reflection. The source defines it as the conscious mastery of mental timing. It's a discipline, pausing, but with precision. Think about a top sprinter at the blocks. That split second of perfect stillness right before they explode off the line, that determines everything. So mental timing in this sense is that awareness of when to hit the gas and, just as importantly, when to hit the brakes. It's like this invisible rhythm connecting your gut feeling, your intuition, with the careful logical analysis. It lets a leader act not just because something external demands it, but because their inner tempo is perfectly aligned with the moment.
And that's the concept, the timing piece, that makes this so critical for leaders and organizations. Because the source makes a really strong claim here. It argues that, especially in these really fast-paced companies, bad timing is often much, much costlier than bad judgment. We pour energy into the what of the decision and completely ignore the when. Like you rush a product launch because the calendar says so, you're just baking in instability, maybe errors.
Right.
But if you wait too long, chasing perfect data, well, you miss the window. The market's moved on. It's such a fine line.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is the leader who gets this timing right. They're acting more like a conductor leading an orchestra, not just, someone watching the clock. They're working in harmony with time's flow, making sure that flash of insight lines up perfectly with the opportunity that's presenting itself. They're using a different yardstick, not speed, but precision.
That completely reframes urgency, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It stops being about just reacting instantly and becomes about executing precisely right when it matters most. So, okay, the theory sounds compelling, but let's talk bottom line. Where does this show up on the P&L? Here's where it gets really interesting. Why does building in this space, this pause before acting, give professionals a real, measurable advantage in business?
Well, the first big one, and maybe the most important, is how it shifts you from just reacting instinctively to making clearer, higher quality judgments. Dr. Ghamari argues most decisions don't fail because we lack data. They fail because of too much reaction. We just, boom, trigger that fast, impulsive system one thinking. Stillness lets you consciously switch gears, engage the slower, more analytical brain power.
Yeah.
It acts like a filter, really, turning all that noise into actual truth. Just allowing, say, a 2-minute gap lets that cognitive pressure ease off just enough. You get clinical precision instead of just running on adrenaline or wanting that quick win.
And it also protects against something huge, decision fatigue.
Yeah.
That's a massive hidden cost, isn't it? We make hundreds of tiny decisions all day. Emails, meetings, delegating.
Oh, no, constantly.
It just drains your cognitive battery. So if you're making a major strategic call when you're already wiped out from 50 emails,
Yeah.
the quality's got to drop.
Precisely. That's what we call mental friction. It's like sandpaper grinding on your thinking gears.
Yeah.
Structure to stillness. It's designed specifically to reduce that friction. It makes sure that when leaders do need to make that big, high-stakes choice, they're drawing from a reserve of clarity, not just scraping the bottom of the barrel, cognitively speaking.
And from a strategic view, these still decision makers, they see problems differently too, right? Not just as isolated fires to put out immediately.
Exactly. They see the bigger picture, the interconnected system, and they actually build timing into the decision itself. They're not just asking, is this the right plan? But also, is this the right moment for this plan?
That leads to genuine foresight, not just constant short-term fixes.
Yes. And that sense of timing, that calm, it radiates outwards. A leader who practices it sets this powerful emotional tone for everyone. Teams start mirroring that rhythm. You replace that culture of frantic reactivity with shared confidence, alignment, which, is fundamental for psychological safety in the long run.
That sounds like the bedrock for real sustainable decision-making power. Okay, let's get practical. The source lays out 5 concrete steps to actually master this mental timing. Let's give the listener that framework. Step 1, redesign the decision flow. This means putting in a specific, structured pause interval before making any big choice. The book suggests starting with just a 2-minute gap between getting info and responding. Why 2 minutes? Is there magic in that number?
Well, it's not magic, but it's strategic. 2 minutes seems to be that sweet spot. It's long enough to kind of decouple your emotional reaction, that immediate urge to defend, agree, or just rush ahead.
Right.
But it's short enough that it doesn't feel like you're dragging your feet or avoiding things. It just gives that higher level cognitive processing a chance to kick in and maybe catch common biases like, confirmation bias or getting stuck on the first piece of info you heard.
Right, decoupling the emotion. Okay. Then step 2 is about the environment. Build focus blocks. Makes sense, quality thinking needs focus. But how do you realistically carve out that deep work time when we're all plugged in 24/7?
You almost have to treat it like a critical meeting, but it's a meeting with yourself, and it's non-negotiable. Quality insight just isn't possible if you're constantly flicking between emails, chat notifications, and your actual work. The source really emphasizes this. Digital distraction doesn't just slow you down, it fundamentally wrecks the depth needed for stillness. So you have to block out truly uninterrupted time for the big thinking. Maybe it's only 60 minutes, maybe 90, but those minutes have to be sacred, no interruptions.
Sacred time. I like that. Okay, step 3 offers a filter for when to act. Apply the 3-signal rule. Act only when 3 things line up: internal calm, external clarity, and sufficient data. If one's missing, wait. Now this sounds brilliant, but let me push back a bit. What if the data is solid and I feel completely calm internally, but the external environment is just chaos? A competitor makes a surprise move, the market is wildly unpredictable. Do I still wait? Because external clarity is definitely missing there.
That's actually the perfect test case for the rule's strength, not its weakness. If the external environment is chaotic, then yes, external clarity is missing. And the source would say, waiting doesn't mean doing nothing indefinitely. It means you wait for the right angle, the right moment within that chaos. So the still decision maker in that scenario might be prepping multiple what-if plans, getting ready, while looking for that moment of leverage to appear out of the chaos. Because if clarity is 0, your chances of acting effectively are low, no matter how calm you feel or how much data you have. The rule stops you from acting just to feel like you're doing something, to relieve your own anxiety.
Okay, that makes sense. It reframes waiting as active prep, not paralysis. Got it. Then step 4 is about learning. Reflect and measure your timing. How do you practically document something as fuzzy as context and emotional state after a big decision?
Yeah, this is where you turn timing from just an art into more of a repeatable discipline. It doesn't have to be complicated. A simple journal entry after key choices. Just note down the context. What was the pressure like? What actually triggered the decision right then? And crucially, how are you feeling? Rushed, confident, tired, calm. Over time, you start seeing patterns. You might realize, wow, I consistently make mistakes on Friday afternoons, or maybe when responding to emails from that particular executive. It's about building that self-awareness decision by decision.
Building the pattern recognition. And the final piece, step 5, is about making it stick. Train presence daily.
Exactly. These are the little things, the micro-disciplines that constantly recalibrate your internal rhythm. Like just taking 30 seconds of mindful breathing before you open that really important email. Or maybe a short silent walk around the block before you walk into a high-stakes meeting. It sounds small, maybe even fluffy to some, but it's not. These are like neurological reset buttons. They train your mind to pause, regain control over its own pace. And that's essential for tapping into clarity when the pressure really ramps up.
So taking this from individual practice up to the organizational level, we've touched on the benefits, better strategy, fewer errors. How do leaders actually embed this idea of intentional velocity, this stillness, into the company culture?
It really requires shifting the whole organization's rhythm, and usually that has to start at the top. The aim is to make clarity itself a shared strategic asset. One specific tactic the source suggests is for executives to start all critical meetings with 90 seconds of silence.
Whoa, wait. 90 seconds of silence.
Right.
In a room full of busy, high-paid executives. Isn't that just burning money? How on earth do you sell that to the finance department?
You sell it by showing them the cost of misaligned focus. Think about it. If a meeting starts with 90 seconds of quiet, everyone in that room is forced to mentally arrive, to shed whatever they were just dealing with and actually center on the agenda at hand. It's an immediate collective buy-in to being present. Now, compare that cost to, say, 20 minutes of confused discussion, people talking past each other, tangents, all because nobody was truly focused at the start. That 90 seconds can easily prevent that waste. So it actually saves hours down the line, not minutes. It's intentional deceleration, but it leads to accelerated effectiveness.
Okay, framed as a process efficiency gain, that makes more sense. What else? What other institutional changes?
The second big one is looking hard at key performance indicators, KPIs. Organizations have got to start rewarding decision quality and accuracy, not just rewarding speed for speed's sake. I mean, if a decision gets made in 2 hours flat, but then it takes 10 hours of frantic cleanup and rework because the timing was off or it was rushed, that initial speed was a liability, not an asset. You need to measure the true end-to-end impact.
Right, measure the real cost, not just the initial time. And the third method you mentioned was encouraging that journaling, but maybe at a team level.
Yes, making decision contexts and timing a transparent topic for leadership teams. Discussing why certain choices worked or didn't, specifically looking at the timing and the team's state at that moment. If we connect this to the bigger picture, all these small changes, these micro disciplines, they add up to macro change. They help build a culture where careful preparation trumps knee-jerk urgency, and where timing isn't just some hidden gut feeling, but becomes a visible, shared strategic tool.
That feels like a really profound shift. So the core takeaway from our deep dive today seems to be this. Real leadership power isn't about just moving faster than everyone else. It's about moving wiser. Stillness isn't about stopping. It's the strategic setup for precise, powerful, and ultimately successful action.
And this really raises an important question for you, the listener, to maybe take away. If this idea of intentional stillness genuinely saves cognitive energy and protects against decision fatigue, how quickly could you try applying just that simple 2-minute pause interval, maybe to the very next high-pressure email you have to write, and just notice what immediate impulsive bias might you sidestep just by creating that tiny gap for thought?
That 2-minute pause. It could save you 2 weeks of headache down the road.
Mm.
And maybe, just maybe, start to reshape your entire professional rhythm. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the art of still decision-making. We really hope these insights help you bring a little more stillness and a lot more strategic power into your work.